Günaydın. Did I use günaydın yesterday? No, but this morning, huh? So it's not that easy to switch from Kalimera, günaydın, Kalimera, günaydın all season. But both is meaning good morning. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Everything okay? Did you swim in the thermal spa water? Yeah, I thought so because you look so much younger today. I thought first, is it my group? You know about this legend, don't you?
Yes, good morning.
So I don't know. I mean,
Tour
if it's true, if it works for everybody, but according to a legend, swimming in this
city.
water makes you looking 10 years younger. And that's why Cleopatra was here every weekend, kind of. So, yeah, I hope everyone had a nice evening and enjoyed yourselves. Now we continue, and you know the program, right? First, now after approximately half an hour drive, we are going to see a place which is having an unbelievable big collection of handmade carpets. So I would like to, at least I'm going to try for preparing you for this visit. Maybe it is the first time you are going to experience a place like this, but I believe there is a lot of you in here who experienced such a place in another TSS trip, maybe even in a trip with another tour operator, because this is very common as handmade carpets. This is what's the car industry? Of course, not such a big profit, for sure not. But I mean, countries are in different conditions, and for Turkey, here, handmade carpets are really one of the most important export items of the country. And you can really find carpet shops all around the world offering handmade carpets from Turkey. Turkey is not the only country in which you find handmade carpets. There is many, many more. World famous, I would say, are the Persian carpets, for example, and you can find a lot of countries where people feed their families with weaving carpets. Yesterday, when I was giving you information about the history, I think I've mentioned that Turkish people used to be nomads, living in tents and living a life moving around. And actually, this nomadic lifestyle, the first Turkish tribes gave up at end of 11th century, which is the time they moved towards the west and finally started living and settling here in Anatolia. Certainly afterwards they didn't need to live in tents anymore. They started having a settled life, but obviously until today all these traditions in their culture, habits, we still have. And this is not only about the handcrafts in cultures, in ethnographic museums. Most often you can really wonder about things which are still used nowadays, and sometimes you wonder how long people are using things, for example. So I would say that this is a handcraft we are talking about, which is thousands of years old. And when Turks imported this handcraft to Anatolia, they continued doing it. Even they didn't do these useful things anymore. Still they were covering the floors. So in traditions, I think that there is always different things which can affect a tradition. So for example, if you consider the hygienic rules in the religion Islam, it's no wonder that people take off their shoes when they enter their homes. And so it's more practical, because it's warmer, to cover the floors with carpets. So that what the nomads used to have for sleeping on later became something to cover the floors. And this of course was at the latest when the Ottoman Empire had a peak period, 15th and 16th century. They started to weave the finest ones with the finest materials, for example silk. And if you visit Istanbul one day, you can easily find the famous Topkapi Palace, for example, which is one of the first palaces the Ottoman Sultans constructed. And if you visit it, there are rooms in sizes like 100 square meters, and these floors are covered with unbelievable, beautiful carpets. Ottoman Sultans, they established a manufacturing place. Actually, it was not only for carpets. They have established a big textile factory, actually, in which they used to produce the uniforms for the soldiers, in which they used to produce the world famous, you know, the Ottoman, the typical Ottoman hat, this red hat the Ottomans used to wear, the so-called fez. So that was a factory. They used to produce these fez, for example. And furthermore, soon they established a section in Hereke, this is the name of that place, where they started weaving finest carpets from silk. Hereke, till today, in the carpet business all around the world, is famous for the finest carpets in the world. This place is not far away from Istanbul and Bursa. And Bursa, look, its location is up in northwest of Turkey, and it is a big city actually, not far away from Istanbul. And Bursa traditionally is a place where silk was produced since hundreds of years. With the trade routes coming from the east, one day silk was imported, and then later they started doing it themselves. Bursa, internationally famous, well known for silk production. Just around the corner, Hereke was located, so they started producing carpets from the finest material, silk. 16th century, 17th century, when the Ottomans have a peak period, they are much more advanced than the Europeans actually in those days. And of course they have relations, and they get state visitors, and I think that the first handmade carpets went to Europe, to the nobles' houses, actually in those days, when there was state visitors who got gifts. And such a gift, a handmade fine silk carpet, was a very popular gift for state visitors. It still today is like that. If you walk around in this carpet place, it's pretty a big building. When you are walking around in there, you can see photos. Sometimes they have a kind of exhibition with photos of people who visited them, who visited the country. I remember in one place I saw a photo when the German Chancellor, she's not anymore, Angela Merkel, got such a small, fine piece. Many years ago, it was American President and many others, and they of course like to show that. They hang the photos on the walls and like to show that. So, but these really are the finest ones. It's not only the fine handmade carpets. It is pretty regular ones. I think this is a place where you even can find carpets which are handmade with organic materials, wool or cotton. Very simple ones can even be more reasonable than the machine-made ones with chemical materials in many other countries, and that's why it's very popular. Lots of people like to buy carpets in Turkey. Let's have a quick look to the history. Why am I saying that Turkey has the best quality ones? Because Turkish carpet weavers are using a knot, which is the so-called double knot. Don't know if you ever heard about it as the double knot, but might be you heard about it as the Gordian knot. because that's very known in the Greek mythology. There is the so-called Gordian knot. One day, Alexander, he cut a rope which was made, the whole story is that one day, Gordion, not far away from Ankara, Gordion was the name of the city. One day, an old man arrived at the city, and this city was a place having an oracle temple, which was doing prophecies about the future. And when the old man, he was a very poor person, he was owning nothing except a donkey and a chariot the donkey was pulling. That was his own belongings. And when he came to the city and heard about the oracle, he decided to ask the oracle about his future. A little bit afraid that the oracle is going to prophesy that he's going to have a bad future, he decided to sacrifice his donkey to the temple, to the oracle, and even this chariot. So he took a rope and tied it with one knot around a column of the temple. Afterwards, the oracle did another prophecy and said that the man who's going to be able to untie this rope from that column will become a great hero. Everyone wants to be a hero, so certainly it's quite a long time. Lots of young men who like to become heroes tried to untie this rope, but none of them managed. So one day Alexander the Great appears in the city, and certainly he heard about this prophecy. He was already a hero. In order to prove that he is a hero, he tried, but even Alexander didn't manage to untie this knot. And worried about that, angry about that, he took his sword and he cut the rope. So this knot you can't untie. Once you tie it, you can't untie anymore. This is known as the Gordian knot in Greek mythology, and in carpet weaving it's the double knot. Many other countries weaving carpets, but always single knots. So what does it mean to have a carpet with a double knot? First of all, to do the knot, you need a longer thread, more material. The carpet becomes a higher density, and with that, of course, a higher quality and a longer lifetime. How the difference between the single and the double knot is hard to explain, but when we are there, first we are going to be in a room in which there is a few ladies just to demonstrate are weaving carpets. This is a big place, ladies and gentlemen, and of course they have many workshops, mostly on the countryside. So the whole thing has an important social background as well. Carpet weaving in Turkey is an important sector, and there is thousands of people who are weaving carpets to feed their families, and this is, of course, it gets harder and harder, more and more difficult to find young weavers, to find ladies and men who are willing to stay and live in the countryside, to keep work in such a workshop. But they try their best, and they get a lot of support, of course, from this government, from the state itself, but it gets really harder and harder. So some of these carpets we are going to see, and it will be a demonstration, it will be educational. If you ask me, there is always something nice and interesting you can learn, even you are not interested at all. And I believe that after seeing the ladies doing this knot, I think you will get a much better feeling of how difficult work it really is, and you will have a much bigger respect, I believe, after you learn how long it takes to weave such a carpet. And it's not just a business, it's an essential part of our traditions, as I said before. For example, when I married my wife, she brought her dowry. Are you still keeping the dowry tradition in Norway? I don't think so. Maybe rarely. Do you know what it means, dowry? No? Look, my daughter, she's 11. She already has a collection of some stuff. Her grandmother, her aunties already collected for her. Mothers, grandmothers, when there is a baby born and it's a girl, a few years later they start collecting things which they will give her one day when this girl grows up and marries. This is a help for her households. My mom, believe me, in my mom's household, she's still today. My father passed away, he may rest in peace, years ago. And my mom is 78. She married when she was 18. And she still has some forks and knives and spoons her mom gave into her dowry, which she got when she married. Nowadays, of course, young ladies, they have a modern lifestyle, they have a modern designs in their homes, but even if they don't use what they get in this dowry, that can be towels, that can be blankets, that can be table covers, a set of spoons and forks and so on. You know what you can need in your household. And it's not rare they make, I don't know how to say in English, but I see Norwegian ladies sometimes doing it. Knitting, yes. And they do things normally you put on your TV. Nowadays you have the flat screens, you can't do that anymore. But things to cover other furniture, you know what I mean, right? So look, my wife, she brought her dowry and there was so many stuff in it which we didn't use at all. But she never gave it away. She never gave it away. This would be disrespectful. And even, you know what they do when they know the grandmother is going to come to visit or the mother is